Hey everyone, it's Alissa from Planet Alissa. Happy New Year! It's actually New Year's Eve as I am filming this New Year's Eve morning, but I suspect by the time I get uploaded it'll actually be 2016. So I wanted to make this video to kind of show you my year in reselling, a recap of, the money I made, where I made it, that sort of thing. Most of you who watch this channel know that I do sell on Etsy, but that isn't really the main source of my reselling income. The main source of my reselling income is Amazon. In 2015, I did officially become a full-time reseller. I made that change in the spring, I think, like March. So I haven't been a full-time reseller for the full year, but for most of the year. And I was doing pretty good even in January and February, which is what inspired me to finally take the plunge and go full-time into reselling. And so I want to just kind of show you my numbers, what it looks like, and how I did this, I guess. I am just a one-woman operation. I do have occasionally some help from my boyfriend, when I'm dropping off boxes to be shipped out to Amazon. He does help me with that, although he can't lift heavy boxes because he's got a bad back, but he can push a shopping cart with boxes in it, so that's helpful. And he does help me sometimes in the stores too. Just yesterday he helped me push a cart that was laden with clearance deals because, hey, they're out there. So if you are doing Amazon, head to your local stores and look for deals because they're everywhere. So what I'm going to do is show you like a screen share that shows you my overview of my year. And where I'm getting this graph from is actually from GoDaddy Bookkeeping. It's getting noisy out there. I use GoDaddy Bookkeeping to track my expenses and income from reselling. I actually think Thrifty Teresa mentioned it in one of her videos a while back because I've been using it for a while now. And so I looked into it, and it's very affordable. I think it's something like $8 a month or something like that, so that's pretty reasonable. And you can sync it with your Amazon, your eBay, your Etsy account, and your PayPal account, which is hugely helpful for me because what I do anywhere where I'm paying with a credit card to buy merchandise or buy supplies, I will use my PayPal business debit card, which gives you cash back, to your PayPal account. And what's awesome is because I have my PayPal account linked to my GoDaddy Bookkeeping account, it'll automatically import those expenses. Now I do have to categorize them on there, like say, okay, most of them are going to be cost of goods sold, but sometimes it's supplies or something else, so I can categorize them. You also have the option of when you categorize something, say like all future bills from this company are, cost of goods sold or supplies. So sometimes I do that because some places like I only ever buy, merchandise there. So automatically when it imports it, it'll import it as cost of goods sold, which is really helpful. Because before this, I was using a spreadsheet to track all my expenses and income, and the smaller you are, the easier it is to do a spreadsheet. But as you grow bigger and you're spending more and making more, the spreadsheet becomes really complicated. It becomes that becomes a big project. Like, I used to kind of go over at the end of the month was to go do this spreadsheet and get that all straightened out. And it was just like, it became such a chore, it'd take like a whole day to work on that. So I need to simplify it. And so the GoDaddy Bookkeeping software really helps me to do that and gives me a nice overview too of the money that I'm making. Oh, the one exception is if I go to Target, I use my red card. So I have to enter those expenses manually, but hey, I save 5% on all my purchases, so can't beat that. And of course, there's some places like, garage sales or rummage sales or even some thrift stores where you can only pay cash. So those expenses I have to enter manually too. So this graph that we're looking at is courtesy of GoDaddy, and what this is showing is an overview of my 2015 reselling income. And it has it broken down by month there, as you can see, and then at the bottom we see three numbers, and the center one is the most exciting looking. That's total income, and so that is six figures. It's $139,237.62, which is pretty awesome. But keep in mind, that is not my profit. That's just the total amount of sales. So if you go over there, you see total expenses are $85,117.46. So when you actually see the profit, it's only $54,120.16, which is still pretty awesome, and I'm very happy with that. So I'm not complaining, but sometimes when you hear people make these, claims that they make six figures on Amazon, is that actually their profit or is that their total income? And this includes Amazon, it includes Etsy, it includes what little I sell on eBay. I went through and calculated, I think my average ROI, or return on investment, was something like 63%, which is very good. I know people who say oh, they want to make 100% ROI. It's pretty tough to do. But go for it. You can do that if you're just doing thrifting and buying stuff really cheap. But once you bring in retail arbitrage, it's hard to get 100% ROI, and you don't need to. Because the one thing about Amazon is you usually don't have to hold on to merchandise for very long. When you're buying it, you can see what the sales rank is, so you know if something's going to move quickly or not. And, if it's not going to move quickly, you might want to think twice about purchasing it, unless you're going to get a really great return on investment on it. Now, the one thing on GoDaddy that kind of bothers me is you can't really create a breakdown like this and show Etsy, Amazon, eBay income, profit and loss. So I kind of have to, I know what I made on each of those sites. So on Etsy in 2015, I made under $10,000. I made $9,425.30. Not that I made, that was my gross sales. So profit is actually less than that because you got to take into account fees and, of course, the purchase price of items. I had set for myself a goal at the start of the year of making $200 a week in sales on Etsy, and I didn't quite make that. I averaged it out and ended up being $181 a week, which is pretty good, but I can do better. So I want to do better in 2016. So I'm going to stick with that goal going forward. And then looking at those expenses, those $85,117.46, I'm not going to show the breakdown of it, but I'll tell you that most of those expenses are coming from cost of goods sold and are coming from fees, in this case mostly Amazon fees, because that's mostly where I sell stuff. So for 2015, my Amazon fees came to $36,147.18. Most of that is going to be the fees each time you sell an item, the fees that Amazon takes. There's some storage fees there. There's, other miscellaneous fees, the inbound shipping fees, things like that. Then cost of goods sold is the number one biggest expense. So in 2015, I spent $38,694.73 on inventory, which, seems like a lot of money, but obviously I made money this year, so I'm happy to spend that money if I can spend that money and make money. And the other nice thing about this graph is it does show the breakdowns by month. Obviously, December was my best month. I mean, that's almost always going to be when you're selling products, that December is just going to be off the charts good. What did I make in December? It was well over $20,000 in sales. So that accounts for a big part of this year's profit. And November was pretty good as well. I think November was the second best month. But I also did well over the summer. Look at June, July, and August. Those were pretty big months for me too. And of course, January and February, I was still not even selling full-time, being full-time reseller then. So those months are actually a bit lower, and those aren't big sales months, honestly. No matter what you do, those are going to be slower sales months. I should just explain on this graph, the green bar that you're seeing, that's the total income bar, and then the orange bar is the total expenses bar. So every month I guess I showed a profit versus expenses, which is good to see. And you can see I spent the most in December, but I also made the most and had it's like a bigger ROI. That's partly because there's a lot of stuff that I bought, in January, February, March, April that sold in December. December is awesome on Amazon. I mean, just stuff that hasn't sold, all year long will start selling, and then just about everything you ship in sells too. So it's pretty amazing. Now, I just started using this software this year, so I can't actually show you 2014's by comparison, But if I did have a chart like this for 2014, it would show a very different picture. In 2014, I made almost no money reselling. That's because just about every dollar that I made in sales, I was putting back into the business to grow the business. And that's how it's going to be in most businesses when you start it, whether you're starting a McDonald's franchise or starting a brick and mortar store or starting an online reselling business. As you start the business, you're going to have a lot of expenses and you want to grow that business. So you're going to keep putting money into the business. And you're probably not going to really start, drawing a paycheck, like making income from it, until somewhere down the road, depending on how long it takes you to build up your business and how much you're starting with. I started with basically nothing, doing Amazon. And, so I built it up. I think I'm thinking off the top of my head, like last year, gross total income was maybe like probably about $39,000 or maybe even a little less. And, what I spent on the business was probably like, 37,000. I mean, so my income was very small, but that's because I was putting money back into the business to grow it, and it paid off. This year, obviously, I made a lot of money on Amazon, because, it took me time to grow and get started. And I think that's important to keep in mind if you are, just starting out or looking at starting out. It's going to be tough. At first, you're not going to make a lot of money, but as you put more time into it, put more money into it, and continue to grow, you will see more income coming in. So I put all this out there not to discourage you, but just to be realistic about expectations. This is my first full year being a full-time reseller. Well, not even a full year. My first part year of being a full-time reseller, and I did very nicely. But it's not my first year of reselling. Obviously, I was selling just about all of 2014 online, selling on Amazon, selling on Etsy, even selling a little on eBay. But I didn't make that much money because at that point I knew I wanted to, go full-time. So I was putting a lot of money into the business to grow it. So one of the things I did in 2015 was set goals for myself. As I mentioned, I set that $200 a week in Etsy sales goal, which I didn't quite meet. So I'm going to stick with that for 2016, and continue to shoot for at least $200 a week in Etsy sales. I don't see myself doing too much to change my Etsy business in terms of, how much time I'm putting into it, how much I'm listing, how many items I'm buying and selling. So I can't expect it really to grow much more if I'm not going to put more into it. So yeah, I'm shooting for, $200 a week. Again, we'll see how that goes. Then I also set for myself at the start of 2015 Amazon goals. And basically, that was my criteria for saying, like, if I can, meet this goal for, 2 months or 3 months or whatever I said, I think it was 3 months, then, I can make the switch to doing this full time. And my goal was $800 in gross sales each week on Amazon. Which, as you saw the numbers, $800 does not mean $800 profit. But I figured if I could do $800 a week on Amazon, I would be okay. And as it turned out, for those first 3 months, like January, February, March, which are slow months, and I knew they would be slow months, I don't think I had a week that was under $800. So, and I had some weeks that were well over. So I was like, okay, I think I can do this full time. And so I made that switch. Now, based on the fact that I was like way off on that goal in terms of I undershot, what I was doing. I have raised the bar significantly for myself for 2016, and so I've set a goal for myself of selling $1,750 a week worth of stuff on Amazon, which is like, whoa, that's more than double my goal from last year. But at the same time, I'm pretty confident I can do that because as my numbers show from last year, I was able to make quite a bit of money on Amazon. And so in addition to that goal, I really, as I said, I'm a one-woman operation. So there's only so much I can do with Amazon. There's only so much time I can put into it. And I mean, so much money too. But But time is the big issue, and so streamlining things as much as possible is something I want to look at. One of the investments I made right before the fourth quarter this year was I bought myself a Dymo label printer, a Dymo Turbo 450, I think it is. And how that works is previously in like the FBA videos I made, I showed, how to print out full sheets of labels. And first of all, that limits you because you don't want to waste labels, so you're always like trying to do your your shipments in like multiples of 30. So it's like I could send in 90 items or 120, but like, I didn't want to send in 100 because that would like mess everything up and have all these blank labels. So that's weird and a weird way to think about things. But the bigger issues, you spend a lot of time looking for the labels on the sheet and matching it up with the item and whatnot. And so with this Dymo printer, I can just print labels as I list the items, as I add them to a shipping plan. I do use software called List Label Ship to do that, and it's like a plugin that'll plug into your browser. I think I use it with Firefox. I think it works with Firefox and Chrome. I don't think it'll work with Internet Explorer, Safari. It works with browsers that have that bar at the top where you can add tools to it. But anyway, what that means is as I list an item, I print out the label, stick it on, and put it on my shelf or whatever. So then it's all labeled. Then when I'm ready to pack up my shipments, I don't have to search through the sheets of labels. I can just pull the item on the shelf and stick it in the box, and we're done. And the reason I did that, it was an investment, although I think it works out to be about the same cost, for printing a label, so that's no big deal. But the reason I did that was to save time, and it saved me a lot of time in the fourth quarter when I was sending in, some big shipments, and I would have been struggling if I was trying to search through sheets of labels, and I had like 200 some items going in at a time, and this way made it a lot easier for me. So that's one of my goals for 2016, as far as Amazon, as far as everything goes. To try and streamline things as much as possible, to try and figure out ways that I can do things more efficiently. So, things like I'm looking more into trying to do different online arbitrage things because you can save a lot of time doing that. You don't have to, drive to stores or, walk around stores or scanning or stuff. You can do it, in your pajamas in front of your computer, when you have some spare time. And so that's something I'm looking at for 2016. And then another thing that I think would be a huge help in 2016 is to buy more stuff in quantity. Now that isn't always possible when you're searching clearance deals, when you're thrifting, things like that. You just buy what's available. But if you find something that is a good deal, is to buy as much as you can at a time. Especially in the fourth quarter, I did a lot of like quantity things where I was sending in 10 of an item or something, and it's awesome, especially in the fourth quarter. Like once you get the buy box, you'll just see like all those sales just come right in like one after another. So that's pretty cool. And it's not much work to list 10 of one item versus listing 10 different items. I mean, I just set the quantity as 10 on the computer, print out 10 labels. Whereas if I have to list 10 different items, that's like 10 different things when I'm listing them on Amazon. So it does take a lot more time. So if I can get things in quantity, it can save time. So that's one of my goals for 2016. It's not always possible, but I am going to be looking for more opportunities like that. So anyway, guys, that's where I'm looking at going forward, and that was my year in reselling. It was a great year. It had its ups and downs, but overall, I would say it was a pretty awesome year. I hope you guys had a good year too, and I hope you have an even better year in 2016. And thank you all for watching this channel and for following me. And yeah, let's go out and sell some stuff and make some money. Okay, guys, have a great, happy, healthy, safe New Year.